Here we go with the front brake caliper from a 1975 Honda Goldwing. My previous video I showed you how I put the rear one back into service after sitting for a long time. This is going to be one of the front calipers. As you can see, I've already stripped and painted the parts here. That makes for a boring video, so I didn't bother documenting that. But I also spent time cleaning up all the other hardware. I'm going to reuse the brake pads. They still have tons of meat on them. So yeah, I did paint the two halves of the caliper. And then this hanger here, bracket, whatever you want to call it. The finish on that was pretty crummy, so I did repaint that. I ended up using the same silver engine paint that I used on the engine, and I baked it at high temperature to cure it. It's nice and hard and ready to go. And just like with the back, I'm using a Brake Crafters rebuild kit. I'm not getting anything from them. I pay full price for these, but I'm a big fan, so figure it's worth a mention. They've done me very well over the years. So this is my method for putting these things back together. I'm not a pro, I'm an amateur. This works for me. Make sure you know what you're doing if you're going to mess with your brakes. They're awfully important. So we've got our new piston, very nicely packaged. We've got our new seal and our dust boot and the metal ring to hold the dust boot in place. Little tub of grease. Some of these nice dust boots for the sliders. And a new bleeder with a cap and 2 crush washers. So all the good stuff is here. Now step 1 is going to be fit the seal inside the groove. I've cleaned it out with a Dremel, with the little mini wire brush that Dremel offers. The groove's nice and clean, and it's just as simple as putting a little grease on this seal, and it goes right into that groove. So very easy, goes right in. That's what's going to give our brake fluid the ability to build up pressure and obviously not leak past the piston. Put a little bit of this grease on the piston to allow it to slip past that seal. Definitely don't want to damage anything. You can feel when it's square within the bore, and it slides in there pretty nice. All right. The boot has a lip on the inner edge here for the piston, and a lip for the outer edge here where it grabs onto the caliper. And there's just not a whole lot to it. You just work it into that groove. It's very obvious once it's in the groove the way it needs to be. And I'm going to push this guy down a bit, and the other side of the boot needs to sit in the groove in the caliper itself. That's important to prevent that piston from getting extra moisture on it, dirt and grit when you're riding down the road. The surface of that piston needs to stay perfectly smooth, clean, no water on it. So that should do a pretty good job keeping it protected. And then this ring simply goes around. So it kind of shows you the way it goes. So the other half of the caliper, this is much easier than the rear caliper, as it's only a single piston, and you're just bolting the two halves together. Got some king-sized Allen bolts here. All right. I will probably check the torque on those later once it's mounted, because it's a little bit tricky to get a good handle on it when you're holding it with your bare hand. So now we've got our spring here, which keeps the pads from rattling, moving around. There's one direction that it goes in, and you can tell when it's correct. Let's see. Yep, I had it the right way. So it just sits in here like this, and when the pads are installed, it's just putting a little bit of tension on the pads, keeps them from rattling. The pads have these shims that have an arrow, tells you which way they need to be pointed. Now this caliper is the, let's see, it is the left side caliper. The bleeder hole is here. I'll throw the bleeder screw in there, just finger tight. So the bleeder screw always needs to be pointed upwards. The brake line is going to come here with the banjo, but the bleeder screw needs to be the high point. That's the only way you're ever going to get it bled. So when it's installed on the motorcycle, it's going to be sitting like this, with the red dot being the front of the bike. So this is the orientation it needs to go. So these arrows are going to point forward as well. And they're really going to sit in here like this. But as you can see, there's nothing to hold them in place. So that's where the silver bracket comes in here. And the two slider pins. Now there's only one way that these can go, and that's like this. Want to use a little bit of caliper grease. Don't overdo it. I've watched videos where it has shown that if you load up too much grease and it gets behind the pin, then it can't ever fully seat in the bore, because the other end is not open. So you don't want too much. You're just keeping it lubed, trying to keep any water from causing things to seize up. So don't overdo it. Working on a car one time as an amateur, I remember using way too much, and I had a heck of a time getting these sliders to fully seat in their bore. And it was a lesson learned. Don't use too much. So these need the ability to slide, and we've got some small Allen head bolts here that mount the caliper to this. So the way it's going to sit is going to be like this. So you can kind of see how things go together here. So I did screw up the sequence here. These boots need to go on these pins before they're installed on that bracket. So they kind of fit like this. There's a groove that the top sits in, and then when you put it on here, there's a groove where the other end kind of hooks on, and there we go. And I'll be doing the same thing here. Come on now, slippery sucker. All right. All right, and I make sure that it is in the groove all the way around for both of these. All right, so now the brake pads are going to sit on these little ledges here. If I rode this in all types of crazy weather, I might be tempted to put a bunch of brake grease on these parts. This bike's never going to get ridden in the rain. It's never going to see bad weather. So I'm leaving them dry. I've done that with all my other Goldwing projects. Haven't had any problems. With a car, driving it in bad weather in the Midwest, yes, I would probably throw some grease on there. So you can see the pads sit nicely like that, and then the caliper is going to slide over the pads, and we need to get the flats of those pins lined up with the flats on the calipers. And then these Allen bolts go here. That spring that I put in the top, I mentioned, puts some tension in the pads, and that requires pushing the caliper down with just a little force to get the holes to line up. Doesn't take much. And snug these down. I'll do a final torque check later. But there we go. That's a loaded brake caliper, I guess you could call it. I'll get the pads aligned here. They're a little bit out of whack. But that's it. This should work real well once I get it put on the bike. I've got new brake lines, new banjo bolts, and I do have the long bolts that mount the caliper to the fork. The forks have been refinished, but I don't even have the frame of the bike yet, so there's nothing for me to mount these to at the moment, but that'll be coming up in the next few weeks, I hope. So again, I'm an amateur. This is just how I do it. Thought it might be helpful to somebody who's maybe never done this before. Hopefully somebody enjoys this, and it was worth taking a few minutes to have the camera running. All right, guys, take care.